All right, welcome, my beautiful Sonder family members. I am so excited to be with you here this Monday night. I have to keep reminding myself it's Monday because usually I'm not doing a social on Monday nights, but we are doing the last in our series of the August monthly setups. So tomorrow is August, believe it or not, and we are gonna jump right in and get that journal all set up so you can feel like you are ready for some success. My name is Maya, and I am coming to you here from Denver, Colorado, technically Aurora, a suburb of Denver. And I saw there's some folks that are joining maybe for the first time, any of our first timers. We welcome our first time folks. And I will tell you with these setups, sometimes the chat can get rolling pretty fast. We have a little over 200 people here. So sometimes things can get scrolling really fast. Don't let that stress you out. Oftentimes, if you kind of click in the box and scroll backwards, you can see what other folks have said. If you ever need somebody to repeat something or had a question, you can totally ask and check to see what folks said. With me tonight is Jennifer. She is coming to us from Texas. She will be our stage manager. She's going to pop on and give a little wave. You might be able to see her depending on settings. She's going to help make sure if you have any questions, so I don't miss it in the chat, right? There's also the Q&A box that you can put questions in as well. So let us know if there's anything we can help as we're doing this. So for a lot of folks, they will take screenshots or they will take pictures with their phone when we're going through some of these slides because you want to remember for later, right? So feel free to do that. And again, some people join and they totally focus on their journal. They don't hang out in the chat. They're not watching what's happening. They're not contributing to the chat. Absolutely fine. Other people spend a lot of time in the chat. They're making lots of little notes on sticky notes or on scratch paper, ready to work on their journal at a different time. They're here really to get some of those fun ideas. So you do you, whatever makes you happy, right? And then be sure you set your chat to everyone so that everyone can see what what your comments are, and folks can give you suggestions and helpful comments and those kinds of things. So just a few little housekeeping tips with our community guidelines. Be kind and courteous to yourself and others. This is a safe, supportive space where we want to be positive, we want to be supportive, we want to be helpful. So we're hoping that asking you to be kind and courteous to yourself and others, right? No promotions or spam, respecting everyone's privacy. Even if you know someone in real life, you don't bring what they say in a Sonder Social to the real world, right? It's kind of what happens here stays here. Obviously, no hate speech or bullying. Limit those repetitive product and accessory questions. If you have questions about pins or washi tape or stickers, it's fine to throw a couple of those questions into the chat, but the best place to do that is in Sonder Club in our app, because then you can get lots of people will give you links and more folks will see it and kind of put those things in. So that's the best place for that. If you have any customer care inquiries, so something with billing, something with shipping, those kinds of questions, you want to direct those all to hello@silkandsonder.com. That's our headquarters. They're a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 operation. They will get to your email as quickly as possible. Jennifer and I do not have access to your accounts. We can't look you up. We can't see kind of like what's going on. So we're not able to help with those questions. But again, if you ever have any trouble with that, drop an email to them at hello@silkandsonder.com. And then ultimately, just as a reminder, these socials are a tool to help you elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if we're ever doing an activity or filling out a section that you're kind of like, that's not really my jam, feel free to skip it, right? You can skip over it. You can just listen to the music. You can hang out in the chat and ask different questions. You can just work on different parts of your journal. You can color, right? Just kind of as needed. So again, this is for you. And I see lots of birthday babies, lots of August babies there in the chat. So happy birthday to all of our members who are celebrating their birthday here in August. So as you hopefully have seen, this month's theme is going to be tranquility. And Jennifer and I were talking before we started, and both of us agree, because we both have been in education, I don't feel like August and tranquility go together, right? It's kind of like, oh my gosh, so I work at a public school district, and all our new teachers came back today. Returning teachers come back, I think, on Wednesday. Kids come back on Tuesday. So I'm like, ooh, tranquility. That's going to be a little bit of a stretch for me this month to really kind of think about that, which is good, right? I mean, that means sometimes when these themes are a stretch, it definitely means that we need that, right? So I'm definitely going to try to lean into tranquility and kind of see what that looks like. Oh, Felicia says today was the first day back for kids in her district. Oh my goodness. So yeah, so deep breath for all of our folks in education. Yes, we will definitely need to grab onto that tranquility to kind of help us through. And I put this little picture there with this quote just to kind of think about, you often feel tired not because you've done too much, but because you've done too little of what sparks a light in you. So really think about that, and think about that quote as you are going into this month, right? What is sparking a light in you? And I know, again, because beginning of school, there's all these meetings. I have to do a training for our new teachers tomorrow. So I'll try to make it fun. But yeah, so sometimes some of that stuff doesn't really spark a light. So think about, maybe when we think about tranquility, what are some things that can spark that light in you to help you not feel quite so tired? So yeah, I saw Debbie saying, I love what Meha said about the calm before the storm. So there's always a letter from our fabulous founder, Meha, who kind of shares with us what she was thinking when she picked this theme for the month, right? And so I always encourage folks, if you haven't had a chance to read it, please take just a moment. It's on page 2. Take a moment after the social and just kind of skim through it. It's always kind of fun to see what she's thinking for the month. And we always kind of call it her love letter to the Sonder fam, right? And so just a couple of things I wanted to kind of pick out there. We already talked about August as like the calm before the storm. Productivity and rest being two sides of the same coin. I think that's a very interesting concept, and something she says she struggled with for a while, really kind of thinking about it. And tranquility sometimes will require slowing down, but tranquility might be more active. So she talks about, for different people and maybe at different times, to feel that sense of tranquility, you might have to do something that is a slowdown, or you might do something that's a little more active. And also tranquility helps, at the end of the day, it's really about feeling calm and content in the present moment, which looks different for all of us, right? So really kind of thinking about, what does tranquility mean to you, right? Because it's not necessarily going to mean the same thing for everyone. Yeah, Nicole saying, I wrote cringe next to the phrase end of summer. And carve out some space to indulge in what makes you feel tranquility. And as we go through some of these different exercises, and as we go through some of our different activities throughout the month, hopefully that will help as you kind of move through and move into this sense of tranquility, that maybe then you'll have a tranquility toolkit that you can take with you from month to month, excuse me, and kind of help with that sense throughout the year. So here's our agenda for this evening. We're going to do a little opening activity, focusing on tranquility, right? We're going to reflect on July. We always want to spend a little bit of time reflecting. Set our August intentions, work on setting up our mood tracker, and work on setting up our habit tracker. And I always include these two little cartoons here because I like to remind folks, these are by the artist, The Latest Kate. And she has such cute, affirming, very positive little pictures. But the first one says, there's room for you here just as you are, right? So if things are going great and maybe you got a promotion, or maybe you were retired, or bought a new house or something really exciting, and you want to celebrate and you want to share that with us, we love to celebrate with you. We love to celebrate with our Sonder fam. Please share those celebrations. Conversely, we know that life likes to throw us curveballs, and everything's not always a celebration, right? So sometimes things are a little stressful. Sometimes we have some major challenges. We have some health problems. We have maybe some relationship problems. Maybe we have a family member who is ill, or someone dear to us who has passed away, struggling with those kinds of things. Share those as well, right? We're here to support you. Sometimes all it takes is just someone else saying, I hear you, girl, right? Like, I am right there with you. thinking of you, keeping you in my thoughts. So don't ever be afraid to share something that you think is too negative or too positive, right? Sharing what's happening with you is important. We're here for all of that. And speaking of feelings, the way you feel matters, and no emotion you feel is bad or unworthy, right? Nobody can tell you how you should feel about something. How you feel is how you feel. So we're here to share the feels. We're here to celebrate. We're here to commiserate. We're here to support all of those things, right? So keep that in mind as we kind of go through our social. So for our first activity, you want to find a blank piece, maybe a blank page in your journal. It's a new month, so hopefully you maybe have a little blank space still in here. Maybe you want to use the scratch pad in the weekly setup portion. Maybe you want to have a thoughts journal that you got, our extra little thoughts journal that it's just full of blank pages. Maybe you have another journal. Maybe you have just some sort of a scratch pad that you want to write on. So what we want to do is we want to make a list of 10 activities that make you feel calm and grounded, right? And then throughout the month, you can add to this list as you think of those new activities and check off the others as you complete them. So when, you can do this on any of the pages. I did it on page 3, just because I like to use that definition page, because otherwise it's just kind of not to say it's a big blank page, but right, it's got the definition on there. You can use anything you want. You could use the top part of the Sudoku. You could use 16 has the calming elements. We do have a social that will be focusing specifically on page 16, just in case you're wanting to share for that. But so you're just going to list those 10 things. And so if you are able to join us for Meha and Gretchen Rubin's fireside chat, was all about the 5 senses. And so I kind of tried to focus on tranquility through the 5 senses. So I have things like music, vanilla scented candle, soft fuzzy blanket, watching ocean waves, even though I have to watch ocean waves on like a YouTube video because I am in a landlocked state. A London fog tea latte. I love those. Those are so delicious. I see some other folks like that. Yeah, I heard a lot of people saying the Sudoku is hard. I don't Sudoku, so I can't tell you if it was hard or easy. It's just not my jam. So yeah, you could totally use that page. I also put birds chirping, pine trees, warm fuzzy socks, watching things blow in the breeze, and peppermint tea, right? So kind of, I was thinking of all the different, our 5 senses and the different things that would help me feel calm and grounded. So it could even be sitting and taking a deep breath. And Brianna's saying, this is difficult for me. So that's why we want to see you. Feel free to put those things in the chat. What kinds of things, those 10 things that are calming and grounding for you, can be small things, can be big things, can be active things, can be passive things. I know when Jennifer O did hers, she said that she realized almost all of her things involved sitting, which is fine, right? But it was kind of an interesting thing to see because a lot of times she's very, very active and doing lots of things. So she realized those things that were calming and grounding were more sitting. So what I'll do is I'll play a little bit of music. We'll let you kind of go through. Feel free to share if you'd like, or just kind of work on this, and we'll check back in here in just a minute. All right. Such fabulous ideas and things that you're all sharing in the chat. I had shared that sometimes ironing, I know that's weird because I tried to buy things that don't need to be ironed, but for some reason, ironing, just like turning on the iron, I'll like iron a piece of fabric, something that I have, just that kind of pressing and the heat and all of that just kind of is this very calming, repetitive. Plus, it has the benefit of getting rid of the wrinkles in the clothes, right? So kind of fun. So I see lots of people saying things like reading or sitting on the porch, right? Sitting outside, going into the beach. Water a lot of times can be very, very calming. Yeah, and some people, like if you didn't get 10, that's fine, right? You can add to this throughout the month. The other thing you could potentially use this for would be to transfer over when you do, if you want to do your bingo, right? We have the make your own bingo in there this month. So you could always kind of go. And then, yes, I love Lauren saying, wow, once I started writing, I couldn't stop. I got to 16. I love it, right? Just all the things that you can think of and kind of think of this as your little toolkit, right? You can go back to it again later and kind of see these things. I also really love that several of you said, thank you so much for showing that you wrote on this page, right? I thought, oh, this is a pretty page. I'm not supposed to write on it. It's just this pretty page. Heck no, right? This is your journal. Fill it up however you want, right? Write on these pretty pages, draw some doodles, put some stickers on there. You always can write. This is your journal. None of us are ever going to come to your house and knock on the door and ask to see your journal and give you a demerit because you did something wrong, right? This is totally yours as you see fit, right? So don't be afraid to make it your own. So let's dive in to that monthly planner. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to reflect on the month of July. It's always good to take a moment, think back on that month that we're just now finishing up and think about the things that you did, the things that worked well, those wins, those challenges, those favorite moments, and those things you want to start, stop, and continue. So this is on page 8 in your journal. And the wins are something that you did that made you smile, it made you happy, some sort of an accomplishment, something that was great, something that was, again, just something fun, something happy. Doesn't have to be a huge thing, right? But you can totally put that there. Those challenges are maybe some things that didn't go right, something maybe out of your control, some sort of a stumbling block, a frustration for the month. And then the favorite moments, of course, are those things that were the favorite. And sometimes they coincide with the wins, right? So don't worry about if those overlap. You could absolutely do those things. You could look back if you have the July journal, you could look back at those rosebud thorns from each weekly spread, see if there's anything there that you want to pull over to these reflections. I also suggest taking your phone and looking through your calendar and looking through photos, looking through that camera roll, right? And kind of seeing what you did. It's always surprising to me the things I do in a month that I forget that I actually did. So we've also got the things I want to start, I want to stop, and I want to continue. So those things I want to start are those things that aren't being done, but I want to start doing for whatever reason, right? Things that maybe I want to begin doing to get better results, things we're trying or experimenting with for those better results. Things I want to stop are things that aren't working or aren't helping me. They're impeding my progress. They're not practical. They're not delivering those desired results. I don't like these things that no longer serve you, right? And then continue are those things that are working well, things you want to keep. You want to continue to see if they're worthwhile, things you like, or things you need. So I do have a few examples for some different folks who posted in Sonder Club. So very fun, different ways to do this. Some people have beautiful handwriting. None of these are mine, but none of those are my handwriting. I do not have that tidy of handwriting, right? But you can see kind of some different ways to do that, different ways to kind of one person has for the wins, they have pluses. For the challenges, they have little negatives. And then for the favorite moments, they have little hearts. So I love that as well. So again, gonna play a little music, let you work on this section. Feel free to share any part of this page that you'd like in the chat, and we'll check back in here in just a moment. right. Well, thank you all so much for sharing those wins, those challenges. I know those challenges can be really tough. It can be really hard when you've lost a loved one, and that includes our furry loved ones, right? That is just as hard. So hugs to you, and it's good to be able to write that down. Sometimes just writing things out on paper and getting those emotions out really can help you feel better. Right. So thank you all so much for sharing all of those different things, those things you want to start, stop, and continue, kind of what that's going to look like as we move on. So as we move on, we're going to set our intentions for the month of August. So we have these 6 areas over on page 9 where you can set your intentions. Now, these are suggested categories, right? The spiritual health, personal life, physical health, key relationships, money management, and professional goals. If one of those categories doesn't quite fit with your lifestyle, change it. Right? Come up with a different category. I know Jen O, she's retired. She says it doesn't make sense to set professional goals. So she calls them learning goals because she still wants to keep learning, right? I've seen some people change money management to things like home and garden, right? So things that they want to do. Yes, Sierra, whiteout is your best friend. And if you look on Amazon, you can Google like cream color correction tape. And so it actually matches the cream color of the journal. If you ever, the cream whiteout, because I know we don't want it to be, a different color, but yes, there is a cream. I seriously just put in Amazon cream correction tape or something and it showed up, but it is a thing. So don't ever be afraid to, and don't be afraid to scratch things out either, right? Somebody's put in a link. Yeah, don't be afraid to scratch things out. It does not have to be this perfectly tidy kind of thing here. So here's some tips and tricks for when you fill this page out. Maybe you want to use the theme of tranquility to set your intentions, and I'll show you an example of someone who did that. Maybe you want to focus on a specific area like self-love or self-talk. I know someone had mentioned they want to start embracing the quirkiness of themselves, right? And embracing it's the you is what makes you you, and so kind of embracing how they are. So maybe that's something they want to use to set intentions. Maybe you want a name of a song or some lyrics that inspire you. Maybe again, it's really kind of thinking about how you want to feel this month in each of those areas. Maybe you want to use stickers or colors or drawings or images. Maybe it's something you want to let go of and something you want to start doing. So one thing that I've seen some people do is they use sticky notes for this section because they feel like they're still in the brainstorming phase and they don't want to commit it to the paper until they actually get done brainstorming. So sticky notes are your friends in these sections. The other thing that I kind of popped in there, and again, remember, you can take some screenshots so you can kind of remember and hold these, but maybe you want to reframe some negative self-talk. Maybe you've been struggling with some self-talk. So maybe you want to kind of reframe what that looks like in maybe your personal life. So if you think I can't do this, it's too hard, you might reframe it in, I can do this by breaking it down into smaller steps. Thinking they're doing better than me, I'm a failure, reframing as I admire their success, what can I learn from them? So these are some kind of fun ways that you can reframe that negative self-talk, right? And then the other little thing that I found that I'm going to actually put in my money management one is this little quote about the biggest difference between money and time is you always know how much money you have, but you never know how much time you have. So sometimes thinking about money and time and what that looks like is something that you want to kind of do to reflect on. So here are some examples, and the one in the bottom right is our fabulous Jen O. She shared hers with us to show sometimes it's words, right? And it's just simple words, and then she made it fancy by coloring in that box around it, right? It does look fancy doing that. I don't know why, it just looks nicer. Some people incorporate art, so they draw cute little sketches and those kinds of things. That would not be me. I am not a super talented drawer, so I would do something else. I also like the one that's there on the bottom left where they left a little space for reflection. So they kind of covered over the money management and they put space for reflection, right? I also really love the one up in the top where it says take a chill pill, right? So you can see one person up at the top changed money management to volunteer management, right? So volunteering. You can see Jen O changed hers to home and garden management instead of the money management. Also have some meaningful quotes. This is always a fun time to put in if you have some quotes. And a lot of times if you just Google quotes about spiritual health, you get all sorts of interesting different things that will pop up, right? Quotes about money management. Maybe there's one that kind of catches your eye and captures how you want to go through for the month. So you can do that. Stickers, right? Obviously. This one in the top right, someone did, this is how they incorporated that theme of tranquility. So notice how at the top they wrote, invite tranquility by ... And then in each one, they put the things that they were going to do in each area to invite tranquility, like invite tranquility by dating myself, invite tranquility by affirming my team, invite tranquility by setting a plan for my money, knowing exactly where it's going is peace of mind, right? So that's a super fun way to, again, kind of pull that theme in as you're, again, trying to play with that idea of tranquility and see, oh, Nicole, you'll have to tell us what the best quote is that you found. Here's some other fun examples. The more or less for each category, right? So I love the one on the right where they have the greater than, less than signs, right? So greater abundance, less fear, greater intentional time, less proximity time, greater organization, less chaos. Another person just wrote more and less. Oh, Jack Cornfield has some great quotes, definitely. So I think that would be great. So I love the more and less also, right? So more reading and learning, more practice, less worrying, less procrastination. And the one in the middle, I decided I wanted to use this one. Oh, Diana, did you put yours up there? I love that. See, we'll get all of these from our Sonder Club, right? These are all real life examples. But I love the little, it looks like little envelopes where it's kind of colored at the top. And then there's those action items in each of the other three quadrants. So I love, love, love that. I thought that was really pretty. So I'm going to work on mine. And I wrote in my physical health one, in the top part of the little envelope, I wrote, I accept my body as it is today and allow it to become even healthier and more beautiful. And then in the other three little triangles, I wrote movement, nourishment, and rest. So definitely love the fun little idea of those envelopes, right? So I think, yep, that's all. So I'll scroll through these so you can see them, be inspired, share with us if you've repurposed any of these areas, share with us if one of these particularly resonated with you, one that you want to use. If you have any questions, like what that looks like going through, and we'll check back in here in just a few moments. All right. How are we doing? I saw lots of good ideas for different things, and people were finding some fun quotes. Again, kind of setting up this idea of more and less. The other thing I didn't mention, you may not want to fill out every single intention, right? Like Jennifer's putting in the chat. Maybe you want to focus on the top two that you want to focus on this month, and then you can just kind of cover the rest up, or you can just kind of cover the words up, and then you can kind of put how you followed through on that, like what that looked like, or you want to put some stickers in there. So again, remember, like up at the top of that page where it says it's a new month and new you, setting intentions is not making a to-do list. Yes, you can certainly have some action items on here, but again, you want to, Julia, it's fine if you're staring at blank intentions. You will get inspired, I'm sure, at some point. But the idea with these intentions is it's asking something of yourself and then giving yourself the strength of doing it, for the strength to do it. So maybe you want to think, is there some, and it's okay, Mandy, if you did it more like to-dos, that's absolutely fine too, right? But also kind of think about this idea of asking something of yourself and then giving yourself the strength to do it, right? What does that look like? And yes, Cecilia, I love the kind of this intention and then some action items, or some general action items, right? Like around it. So for the money management, they put feel in control and secure. So they're going to stick to the budget, a day off, a day off a debt or two, pay off a debt or two, and then save for a car, right? So some very specific things, right? And some months, my intentions look different than they do in other months. Sometimes a to-do list or some very specific action items makes sense for me for that month. Other months, it's much more, I've used like song lyrics, right? Or different quotes from different people. So again, it's kind of whatever is working for you as you move through these particular things. The other thing I want to remind you, and you might want to do this when you set up your weekly, is to make sure that you're going back and looking at these things that you set. How many of you, myself included, spend lots of time with this setup and then we forget to ever look back? We forget to ever look back at the intentions we set, right? And then we're like, I spent all that time making this lovely, making these lovely intentions, and I forgot to look back. So we try to remind you, if you join us for weekly setups, like, don't forget, maybe when you set your to-dos, or maybe when you set your habits, one of the things you do is you go back. So Andrea is saying this is her first monthly. So just keep that in mind, right? Maybe you want to remind yourself on a weekly basis, go back and take a look at that and kind of see, what were those intentions? And you might notice that the intentions you set don't quite fit. Maybe they don't fit halfway through the month anymore. You know what? You can add some different things. You can scribble it out. You can, kind of switch it up, right? So it's really for you as you're kind of working through what the month is throwing at you, right? Because we may have an idea of what the month is going to give us, but sometimes it doesn't. It surprises us, right? Things change. So you can change these intentions. You're not stuck with them. Yes, exactly. Nicole's saying pivot, right? Isn't that like the hip word, right? The buzzword is pivot. Yes, if we need to pivot, we totally can, right? I would much rather you pivot than look at it and go, oh, I did this all wrong, and then be all stressed out, right? So let's jump into our mood tracker, right? So this is on page 10, right? And this is definitely one of those things that it's taken me a while to I've been doing Silk and Sonder for 3 years now. And I think I've probably only tracked my moods maybe 3 or 4 months out of that whole time, because it isn't necessarily something that I was wanting to keep track of. So I'm going to show you some ways you can repurpose it. But I do think if this is your first month, it's good to go ahead and try it as intended, just to kind of see how it feels, see what it looks like, right? So why would we want to track our moods? What would be the purpose of that, right? And so the idea would be to understand those trends and how we're feeling. The whole point of a lot of this tracking is so we can identify some trends. Because if you're like me, how many times do you say things like, I'm always in a bad mood, I'm always tired, I never do this, I always do that, right? We constantly jump to that, right? And so sometimes when we can actually see it on paper, we're like, oh, okay, it really wasn't always, it was really like maybe a quarter of the time, right? we can notice this and we can start to make shifts. So sometimes we can see, oh, these were days that I was feeling really good and I was having really positive moods. What happened on those days? Oh, well, I made sure that I got some movement in. Oh, I got adequate sleep in. Oh, I, checked off all my habits, those kinds of things, right? So we can kind of notice and see what's happening. And then we can bring those tools into what works when those positive moods, those moods that we want, will show up for us. So this month and every month that has 31 days will have this circle, right? So, but don't get super attached to the circle because sometimes it's hexagons. And I'll show you what those look like in a second. So any month that has fewer than 31 days, so those 30-day months and February, right? We'll have the hexagons. I'll show you an example of what that looks like. So don't be shocked if sometimes you will see, because September will go back to hexagons. So I'm just kind of telling you, yes, it is based on the number of days. I checked it out in my other, I looked through. Yeah, and some people are team hexagon, some people are team circle. So just know the number, if it's a 31 day, you get your circle, hexagons you get for the other months, right? So different ways, here's again, some tips and tricks, things to think about. You could maybe pick 2 or 3 negative feelings, a neutral feeling, 2 or 3 positive feelings to track. You could focus on tranquility. Maybe you want to rank your how tranquil you're feeling that day on a scale of 1 to 6 or 0 to 5, or however you want to do that. Maybe you want to fill in every emotion that came up that month. So you can see this pretty watercolor one has multiple colors in each one. It's very pretty. It's like a very pretty little watercolor painting. For me, it would just be black because I would have every single color would all be on top of each other because I feel like I go through a gamut of emotions and moods throughout the day. So what I started doing when I wanted to track it is every day at noon, I have my Fitbit alarm goes off and I take my noon supplement. And so what I did was I said, okay, so at noon, I'm going to take my supplement and I'm going to mark down what my mood is at that time. So my noon mood, right? And so then I can, and then I filled that in, which was very interesting to see some patterns showing up at noon, depending on the day of the week, right? And some people, they check in with themselves in the morning and they check in with themselves at night. So you could definitely do that. Some people like to use stickers, colored pens, doodles, they just write in pen, right? Those kinds of things. So I'm going to give you some different mood wheels. And I know Jennifer's going to pop some links in there for you. So I think she already popped the one in that's to the Silk and Sonder, blog that talks about mood tracking, right? So that's going to be in there. So here's some moods to kind of track. I also found this, and I thought this was very, very interesting for some folks who are like, I don't know what my mood is, but I know how my body feels. Maybe I want to track how my body feels at a certain time. So you can see this is the emotion sensation wheel. And so you can see there's emotions right there in the middle, and Jennifer's popping the link into that in the middle and then the second circle, but then you can see there's body sensations, right? So things like open, energetic, awake, brow furrowed, inflated, tall, soft, calm, jaw set, steady, relaxed, still, sensitive, warm, right? So there's all these different ways. Yeah, Julie, I thought this was kind of a cool way to think about it because I think sometimes we might have a hard time naming our mood, but we can certainly name how we're feeling. I've got sweaty palms. My heart is racing. I'm feeling empty. I'm crying. I have heaviness. I'm unsteady, jaw drop, speechless, those kinds of things. So this is a cool one. So again, Jennifer put a link in the chat to that if you want to bookmark that to use. And you can also take a screenshot or a picture of this, and I'll cycle through when we're working on our mood tracker. Another one I found that was very, very beautiful is the Art of Growth Feelings Wheel. So it starts out in the middle with peace, faith, and love, and the feelings that are related to that. And then the outer circle are more of those kind of what we call the negative feelings. So anger, fear, anxiety, sadness, and shame. So kind of looking and seeing kind of what that looks like. And again, Jennifer popped in a link if you like that one, and that has some different words or different kinds of things that you want to track throughout the month. So here's an example of the hexagon, right? Like up in the top, up in the top right. And so you can see that they have stickers for the different emotions that they used. You can see the one on the bottom, they kind of did some little hashtag markings that will show you kind of when they fill that in. So that'll be a very pretty and colorful one. There's also the one that's up over here in the on the right hand side where they kind of put down lots of different things. So for joy, they put down multiple feelings of joy, right? And so that they can kind of track that. And then they have some little stickers. So those were just kind of the basic, just to kind of show you people tracking the moods, right? And what that looked like. Here's some ways to repurpose, right? So you can use it as a daily affirmation tracker, tracking anxiety levels, tracking depression levels, that scale of 1 to 6 for different feelings, angry, tired, joyous, those kinds of things. So here's an example. One of our facilitators, Bailey, she's used this before to track her levels of anxiety, and she has it everywhere. She starts with, there's panic, high, moderate, scattered, low, and none. Those are the levels of anxiety that she tracks, which has been very helpful for her as she tries to work on reducing those feelings of anxiety. This is one I did, I think it was in October last year. I think it was around Halloween, hence the spooky sticker in the middle. But I was tracking learning goals. So tracking different learning modalities, which aligned with my intentions that month for professional goals. So I kind of tracked things like read a workbook, webinar, TED Talk, did a keys to literacy training, watched a YouTube video, research article. So kind of tracking the different things that I was using to keep track of learning for the month. There's a couple examples of book trackers. The one in the top left is Jen O's. That's her tracking the different books she's reading, and then she kind of colors in. I think you're a fast reader, Jen, because it looks like you're getting through a lot of books there in the month. I'm impressed. And then there's another one where it has reading is my jam. So I'm not sure if they're tracking minutes or if they're tracking pages, right? But again, kind of tracking this less than 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, and more than 50, right? Yes, Taylor, you could totally do a tranquility tracker. You could track those different activities and kind of see what that looks like. There's an exercise movement tracker down on the bottom left where they have things like Pilates, foam rolling, resistance bands, writing, arms, stretching, kind of Peloton tracking. Then there's the one on the bottom right where this person uses it to track some different work things that they do. So kind of engaging in their social media. So they are tracking, did they do a social media post? Did they create and design a product? Did they invite folks to different kinds of things? Did they do a group post? Did they educate and train? Right. So they kind of use that, and you can see they kind of have that pretty little chevron coloring for all the things that they did in some of those days. So there's some different examples. Feel free to let us know what kinds of things that you're tracking. Again, I'll let you see some of these different examples. Let us know what you want to track for the month, and we'll check back in here in just a moment. Okay. Did we find some things that we want to track? I know there definitely were some folks who are wanting to do different moods, and so they're kind of coming up with those. Remember, you don't have to necessarily track 6. You could track 4. You could just specifically track 2. Oftentimes people, and sometimes I've done this where I've added in the middle there, I've added the meh or whatever, or just kind of that blah mood to kind of track and see what that looks like. So again, lots of different ways to use this. So like I said, try something new, just don't be afraid to kind of try something different, see what it looks like. I'll be really honest. Yes, I made this super cool learning tracker, and I think I probably only used it a few days, but the intent was there, right? And not to say that I didn't do all the things, but I just wasn't necessarily good about tracking. So sometimes it happens to the best of us, right? Yeah. So Meg's saying I use meh every month. Yeah, absolutely. Totally makes sense. Right. So again, kind of see what that looks like. I know we had one Sonder fam member who told us that her husband was saying something like, you're always mad, or it was like, you're always upset or something like that. And she said, no, I'm not. I can show you my mood tracker, and like, here's how many days, and like, here's these days where I was happy, and here's these days where I was feeling, joyous, and here's these days. So we had to kind of backtrack a little bit because she had the proof there, right? She'd been keeping track. So yes, husbands always want evidence, but if you have that there in your tracker, you can show them, and then they have to be quiet, right? Or anybody who wants to see evidence, because we do as humans tend to go to the you're always this, or I'm always that, right? So I think that's just kind of a default state that we get into sometimes. So it's kind of nice to see it on paper there. So let's flip over to that habit tracker on page 11. So we can maybe start doing some new habits. Yes, somebody was saying their therapist always wants to see evidence. So yeah, a lot of times therapists really love it when folks track moods on this and can bring their journal in and kind of show them. So yes, and Julia shuts down the negative self-talk, right? So you're like, well, okay, here's what my tracker says. So maybe we want to start some new habits. Maybe we want to stop doing some habits that don't serve us. So maybe we want to put down that we want to stop going through the drive-through. Those kinds of things. We want to stop doom scrolling, right? And maybe we want to continue those habits that bring us value. And I put this little chart in there just to remind you. Oftentimes what I had planned was this lovely little straight arrow, this linear trajectory. And what happened was a bunch of squiggly wigglies. But I finally did end up getting to the other side. So just know that sometimes as you're filling out these habit trackers at the beginning of the month, be careful of filling out habit trackers for the perfect you, where everybody does what you need them to do, where the weather always cooperates, where technology is always perfect, right? So sometimes we have to make some concessions for the real world. So just keep that in mind. You can use tranquility as a focus. You can pick a theme like grounded or calm or joy or delight that you want to kind of focus on the habits. Maybe you want to continue some habits from last month. I saw some people saying they wanted to bring some things over from last month that worked really well. Find a balance, right? Those habits you can do, and ones that are going to be trickier. I do not recommend finding 6 brand new habits to write down, right? That's too much. It's going to be stressful, right? You're going to feel bad if you miss one. It's too much. So sometimes what's really good is to put a few there on top that are things that already are a habit. So like, for example, I always make my bed in the morning. It's just I've gotten myself into that habit and I just do it. So sometimes if I'm feeling like I need an easy win, I'll put that up at the top, and then I can check those off, right? Check it right off. So maybe you also want to look back at that tranquility checklist that you made at the beginning of the social. Maybe there's some activities that you could add into here. And remember, you don't have to fill out every single line, right? You could only have one thing that you want to track. So here's some examples of things that different people have done. There's the beautiful mandala with all the coloring. That would stress me out if I tried to do something like that, but it is beautiful. And I love the person who did it. And also notice they colored in the dark pink on the numbers, and those are the weekends. So sometimes I notice that sometimes on the weekends, I don't hit my habits like I wanted to, right? So that tells me something. It gives me some information, gives me some feedback, right? There's my lovely habit tracker on the left that I set up for last month. And I think I only filled in, I should look, I think I only filled in like 4 days. But it was lovely. I had a lovely time filling it out. So again, don't count yourself out if you don't actually get to them after you fill them out, right? Notice the one over on the right, they have 4 things listed and that's all. And they kind of drew in some pretty pictures. So that was lovely. Also think about, does this habit still serve me? Or am I blindly following an old routine? Am I pulling over a habit just because I always pull over that habit? Is it actually helping? Is it hurting? Does it no longer serve me? Do I need to replace it with something else? So a lot of people also ask, okay, so what's the difference between this monthly habit wheel and the weekly habit activity thing that's on the weekly setup? So the way that we explain it is that this circle are things you want to do every single day, or pretty much every single day, right? So you see things like water, workout, mindfulness, time outside, bed by 11, no phone after 9:30, doing 2 of their weekly habits, right? And then the weeklies are things that really are set up more specific to the week. Maybe you have some different things happening that week that you want to make sure that get done. So you have that on there. There are things on the weekly that maybe only need to be done a couple times during the week. Like for example, on my weekly, I put pack lunch for work. And oftentimes I will tell myself I want to do that 3 or 4 times that week, giving myself a grace day or 2 if I want to go ahead and eat out, right? I wouldn't put that on my monthly habit tracker because I don't necessarily want to do it every single day. It doesn't necessarily make sense, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't have blank spaces, right? You totally can. It just kind of depends on how you're feeling about that. Here's some other examples of things that people have done. Notice the one on the bottom right, eek, COVID got me, right? So they just kind of colored in that part with one color and kind of left that so they could kind of see and remember as they looked back. I put in a quote from Atomic Habits, the book, which is a really good book, kind of talks about different ways to set up habits and get things done. So you notice he says, if you want to predict where you'll end up in life, all you have to do is follow the curve of tiny gains or tiny losses and see how your daily choices will compound 10 or 20 years down the line. So that's something to kind of think about with these habits that you come up with. What would be, compounded interest, right? So what would be the compounded effect if you did this every day for a year? If you did this, if you did this every day for a month, if you did this every day for 6 months, if you did this every day for a year, if you did this every day for 5 years, what would be the impact in your life? So that's something to kind of think about as you're thinking about setting up these habits. I also have one more, I think, some different ideas, small habits for self-love. If you're wanting to kind of think of some different things, these come from the Silk and Saunders Instagram page. So those always have some good, fun Instagram ideas there for you. And then here's a list of some other things. If you're just like, I still need more ideas, here's even more ideas. So I'm going to play some music for you once again, let you kind of work on this. And then we'll check back here in just a minute and kind of wrap things up. All right. I was like, I realized I had lots of examples there for that habit tracker. So hopefully you've got some ideas again for the habit tracker. So yeah, so I pulled out my July journal and yeah, I didn't actually track a single habit for the entire month after I made that lovely one. So don't feel bad. Don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. Sometimes that just happens, right? So one thing I did want to show you really quickly is a lot of people will ask, how do I repurpose the sleep tracker? I'm already tracking. I've got a smartwatch that's kind of tracking the sleep. So I want to do something with this page because goodness knows we cannot leave a blank page in our journal, which is not true. I totally leave blank pages all the time. But so here's some different ways. Some people track their work breaks, making themselves take a break at work, tracking exercise, workouts, those kinds of things. Michelle's saying this is her Wordle page. Yep, absolutely. Tracking learning log, like, and books that have been read, a cleaning log, different, trips that are taken, different kinds of things. Yeah, you can use this for a tranquility list. Any of those kind of bingo list, like more of a what's the word, like a linear one instead of actually in the bingos. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of things that you can do with that section. So you should feel very set up and very ready to have success as you move forward into August. Please, if you would like, if you feel comfortable, share those planners with us. You see, that's where we get all of our examples from. So we love to have different examples. Oh, Jennifer's saying the August events are finally posted there on Eventbrite. So if you haven't had a chance to sign up for all of our different August events, please be sure and do that. We still have the refer a friend program going. So if you refer a friend, they sign up with your link, they get $10. You get $10. You will get a survey in an email, but you can also scan the QR code here and take the survey. Let us know if there's anything particular you'd like to see some socials on, you'd like to see more socials on, different times. Just let us know the time zone that you're in. So if you say, I wish there were more at 7 p.m. Eastern time, right? So that gives them an idea of what that's looking like. And then Jennifer is also going to throw in the chat the ever important YouTube link that's to the private YouTube channel. You can't get it by searching. You can't get it just by going to the Silk and Saunders YouTube page. You need to be sure to kind of bookmark that or save that somewhere so that you can access any of our events. It usually takes a few days for them to get these posted. We have over 500 now, different socials. So you can always go back. There's always monthly setups in there. There's weekly setups in there. All of those different kinds of things. And also Jennifer is popping in if you want to watch the replay of our fireside chat with Meha and Gretchen Rubin, that is on Silk and Saunders main page, and you can watch that. None of those have the actual chat in there. And sometimes if there's any music, sometimes that gets redacted. But anyway, it gives you a chance sometimes to go back and look through. So I hope you all had a fabulous evening with us here. This time always goes so fast, even though the monthly setups are an hour and 15 minutes, that still goes by really fast. Hopefully you're all ready to go, ready to charge into August tomorrow. So thank you all for joining us. Hope to see you again on some more socials. Take care, everyone, and we will see you again soon.